It's Wednesday, June 16. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. The zones of special operations in the Mount Salem, Denham Town, Greenwich Town and August Town communities have been extended for another 60 days starting June 14. Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang brought the matter before the House on Tuesday, and it was passed with support from both sides of the House. However, some members of Parliament are calling on the measures to be extended to their constituency. Simone Absalom Gale has that story.
The National Security Minister, Dr. Horace Chang, says the clear, hold and build model of ZOSOs enables authorities to simultaneously enforce the necessary suppression measures while strengthening the security, social investment and physical redevelopment of communities. Dr. Chang notes the social investment program, the Articulated Truck Driving Program, that is being spearheaded by the Ministry of National Security in collaboration with the Jamaica Defense Force and Heart Trust NTSA, as well as the Caribbean Maritime University.
The program is delivered on a full-time and part-time basis. The first court commenced training in January 2021 and is expected to sit the NCT-VET examination in June and November 2021, respectively. Upon their successful completion of the 6 months program, participants will be awarded a certificate, and for those who do not yet have a driver's license, they will be awarded a general driver's license. Of course, they will have to do the work with the tests in the program. With the skill set, training and qualification, along with the human development component they will earn during the program, I'm confident that these participants will be scouted for in-demand, good-paying jobs locally and internationally, as opposed to being recruited by gangs.
Opposition leader and Member of Parliament for South St. Andrew Mark Golding agreed about the success of the ZOSOs, but voiced concerns about the violence being experienced due to gang feud in his constituency.
In the last 24 plus hours, we have had on one road a 16-year-old schoolgirl shot and killed, shot in the head and killed. Another young man in the same incident shot and killed. And then that was, I think, today is Tuesday, I think that was Monday, yesterday that happened. And then this morning on the same road, what appears to be a reprisal killing of a young lady who operated a shop. And she was riddled with bullets, I'm told, and killed.
He is calling for the expansion of ZOSOs to vulnerable communities across the island.
There has been ongoing gang-related violence, which has cost many lives, and many more persons have been shot and injured. And it has spilled over into other locations where persons involved have been killed, or persons involved or relatives of persons involved have been killed, even returning from a funeral in one instance, I believe. And there have been strong calls and even demonstrations calling upon the government to implement a zone of special operation in the central Kingston area to give the residents there some relief.
In his response, the National Security Minister explains it is not feasible for the government to declare zones of special operations in all of these vulnerable communities at the same time, given the extensive human, financial and institutional capacity that it requires.
But the zone of special operation is, as described in the, it's a clear hold and build, and we do not wish to dilute that policy. We want to expand it, but expand at the same level in every year we go. And in fact, we have intensified the activity on the instruction of the Prime Minister and in discussion and looking at what works, because to ensure that there's the long-term impact, we are looking at how we can engage more of the young adults in programs that I've articulated in my own recent presentation, not just the truck driving, but other activities, vocational activities, and to ensure that they will genuinely divert it from joining gangs.
He also reiterated the invitation to private sector, civil society groups, international development partners to collaborate with the government in expanding these transformative programs across the island. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gale.
St. Andrew East Rural Member of Parliament Juliet Holness is calling on parish councils to get their houses in order. Speaking at this week's meeting of the Public Accounts Committee, Mrs. Holness pointed to out-of-date financial records and ineffective development plans for municipalities. Melvin Pennant tells us more in this report.
St. Andrew East Rural Member of Parliament Juliet Holness, who is also a member of the Public Accounts Committee, wants local authorities to get help to put their records in order so as to prevent fraud.
We must focus on the weak parish councils, and they must appreciate that when the Auditor General comes in, she is coming in for an audit, and you must be ready. And you cannot continue to excuse not. So when you said they didn't have adequate personnel, that's what I expected to hear, you know. At the time, it wasn't have anybody to the bank recon and wasn't anybody to the financial statements, I remember. It is very critical. And I definitely do not want to come back to any sitting and hear the parish council not being up to date in terms of its records. I can tell you the perception is it is far easier to steal from the parish council than central government. That's the perception. And if your records are not up to date and you cannot be audited, you're cementing that perception. We don't want that.
She made the comments as St. Catherine Municipal Corporation officials who appeared before the committee on Tuesday did not have its financial statements up to date. Auditor General Pamela Monroe-Ellis told the Chief Executive Officer of the SCMC, Andre Griffiths, that draft financial statements issued for 2019-2020 were not sufficient to audit the agency.
So I can confirm that the CEO submitted draft financial statements, I think in 2019, yes, and then again in 2020. Right. But the supporting records are not available. So the schedules to support the financial statements are not ready. And as such, we could not undertake the audit. Right. We have since, with the support of the World Bank, embarked on a project to bring many of the municipal councils up to date with their records. And so we have since, I think, outsourced 22 financial statements. We had included St. Catherine in that, and then we had to take them out because the records are not available.
Mistress Holness called on the local government ministry to help the municipal corporations carry out that function.
It doesn't make sense that we keep coming and having the discussion, because all it means is that more and more, if we're not careful, will be swept under the carpet that we do not know of. We would not be in a position to say that all is well or all is not well by the time we look at those accounts. And sometimes the longer you take to have your records properly updated and vetted, you literally just close your eyes to that and just move to the current and try to stay afloat.
Mr. Griffith says his team has been working to rectify the issue. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton says the new COVID-19 vaccination CommCare software will allow for real-time data gathering and efficiency in decision-making as it relates to vaccines.
We can quickly report and announce that 10,608 Jamaicans have been inoculated with the second dose of the vaccine, while 815 have received their first dose during the Blitz this past weekend.
Dr. Tufton was addressing a virtual ceremony to officially launch the system on Monday. The technology, which has already been introduced at hospitals, health centers and special vaccination centers across the island, provides the Health Ministry with information on vaccine doses and sites. Dr. Tufton says given the goal of the vaccination program to inoculate some 1.5 million Jamaicans, a solution is now in place that allows for ease of data entry and analysis of the target population. The CommCare software was purchased by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, with the training sponsored by the Private Sector Vaccination Initiative. The Jamaica Oil Price Index has increased by 1.2% as of May. We get the details on this development along with our regular market updates in this business report. According to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica STATIN, the All Jamaica Consumer Price Index CPI increased by 1.2% in May 2021. The CPI measures changes in the general level of prices of consumer goods and services purchased by private households. STATIN says an increase in the inflation rate was impacted by a 3.4% upward movement in the index for the housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels division. The institute said the index for the heaviest weighted division, food and non-alcoholic beverages, rose by 1.1%, while the index for the transport division advanced by 0.7%. This movement was mainly attributed to higher prices for starchy tubers such as yam, green banana, and potatoes, which resulted in an upward movement of 3% in the index for the class vegetables, tubers, plantains, cooking bananas, and pulses. The 0.7% increase recorded for the transport division was largely due to higher prices for fuels. STATIN also noted an increase in the housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels division, citing upward movements in the rates for electricity, water, and sewage. The electricity, gas, and other fuels group recorded a 9.6% increase as a result of high electricity rates. The group water supply and miscellaneous services related to the dwelling saw a 2% increase in the index. The May 2021 Consumer Price Index Bulletin outlines additional information and may be obtained from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica website at www.statinja.gov.jm. In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 2,152 points to close at over 428,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 96 stocks, of which 36 advanced, 42 declined, and 18 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 11 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, Caribbean Producers Jamaica, and Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU deferred shares. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 6.8 million units, followed by JMMB Group Limited 7.5% with over 4 million units, and Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 2.1 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, June 15, the US dollar sold for an average $150.93. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $122.83. The pound sterling traded for $211.86, and the euro sold for an average $184.81. In market data for oil, Brent crude futures added 0.37 points to $74.36 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 0.27 points to $72.39 a barrel. This Sunday, we will celebrate Father's Day. A great gift idea for dad is always some world-famous Blue Mountain coffee. However, there's a flip side to this. Coffee is notorious for staining the teeth. But not to worry though. In today's Living Healthy, Dr. Heather Dawn Lawson-Mars shares tips on how to manage tooth stains. This way, dad can get the best of both worlds. Start this dad with a hot cup of Java and still have the bright smile.
Everybody, I am in the beautiful Blue Mountains and I want to introduce to you today one of Jamaica's treasured jewels, a true, authentic Blue Mountain coffee farmer, Mr. Vincent Wallen, affectionately known to us as Uncle Vincent. Uncle Vincent, how long have you been farming?
23 years.
23 years, and why coffee?
Because I love coffee. And I decided to grow the coffee.
Okay, so when you grow the coffee and it is picked, what happens after that?
I sell it to the pulp here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they process it
Yes.
by take the skin off the berry
Yes.
and wash it, dry it, and then they process it out from there. Whether by grown coffee or they send the bean away straight like that.
And that's how we get this rich, delicious brew on our breakfast tables in the morning.
Right.
Uncle Vincent, we are so blessed to have people like you in Jamaica, because coffee from Blue Mountain is world famous for its great quality, and it all starts with you. We're so thankful for people like Uncle Vincent. But you know, we would never have met him if it hadn't been for our dental hygienist, Sarah Kay.
Thank you, Doc. Well, as a dental hygienist, I must say that even though coffee is so rich and delicious, it's not so healthy for our teeth, right? It gives us stainings. But what happens is that it doesn't necessarily stain the teeth itself. It stains the plaque that is on the teeth that is not removed properly. We have two types of stainings, extrinsic staining and intrinsic staining. As the name suggests, extrinsic staining are the stains that we see on the outside of the teeth. That's the enamel portion of the teeth. Intrinsic staining is from the within, right? So there are a few causes of intrinsic stains. If when your mom was pregnant with you, she had tetracycline as a treatment, it could cause you to have intrinsic stains of the teeth. Also, trauma causes intrinsic staining. So if you fell as a child and then in your early 20s you realize that your tooth begins to get brown, like the front tooth begins to get brown, then that is also called intrinsic staining. And what we do is that the dentist would perform a root canal treatment and an internal bleaching to get that tooth looking as white as the other teeth. Extrinsic stains are from foods that we intake and drinks that we drink. So our coffees, or sodas, or colas, or Jamaican curry stains the teeth. When plaque is on our teeth and is not removed as efficiently as it should be, the plaque takes the color of the food that we eat. So this plaque would take the color of the coffee that we drink, this rich brown coffee. It also takes the color of this rich yellow curry that we eat. And so I suggest that after having a cup of coffee, that you just have a cup of water, or just rinse with some water. What it does is it prevents the staining from beginning. Also, it is very important that you're brushing properly at home and flossing, brushing all the way to the gum line so that we remove all the plaque. That way, the coffee has nothing to stick to. More importantly though, every 6 months, you can come and see me, where I will remove all the stains from your teeth, all the plaque from your teeth, so that you can go ahead and have your coffee without worrying about your teeth being stained.
That dark, rich brew that you pour when you're drinking Blue Mountain Jamaican coffee is delicious, but it also can stain your teeth. So remember, brushing and flossing is key, and every 6 months, you really should see your dental hygienist to remove any stains that may have accumulated. Listen, I'm out of here for some coffee. Catch you next time on Facebook, YouTube, and the LFD website. See you next time on HD's Jazz. You have my coffee?
Here are some of the stories making headlines across our region. Trinidad and Tobago will receive a shipment of 300,000 Sinopharm vaccines in the near future. This was revealed by Finance Minister CommCare, who says monies have already been paid in full for this shipment. Sunil Lala has more.
Trinidad and Tobago has already received in total 300,000 Sinopharm vaccines from China. 100,000 was donated, and the first paid shipment of 200,000 vaccines arrived in the country on Monday. And less than 24 hours after that shipment arrived, Finance Minister CommCare says another significant shipment is due in this country. While he could not give a timeline, the minister says payment for this has already been made in full.
The first batch was 200,000, which arrived yesterday, and the second batch that we have paid for is supposed to be 300,000, which will come within a couple of weeks or so.
Mr. Imbert says he cannot disclose the price paid for the Sinopharm vaccines since a non-disclosure agreement was signed with the government of China. He says monies are now only owed for the Johnson & Johnson vaccines, which is coming via the African Vaccination Acquisition Trust.
So if you take the TT 70 million spent already on vaccines and the 37 million we still have to spend, you will get a total of 107 million TT dollars. That's all supposed to be spent in this fiscal year.
But the minister says expenditure on the remaining vaccines could possibly fall into the next fiscal year based on how the shipments of the Johnson & Johnson vaccines arrive in this country.
107 million for all the vaccines. We expect to spend it in this fiscal year, but things can slip. So there would be a slip over into 2021 if there's a problem. But it wouldn't be significant because, as I said, we've already spent 70 million, and I would think even if there's a problem, we would still be spending maybe 80, 90 million this year.
The total shipment of 600,000 Sinopharm vaccines, coupled with the 200,000 AstraZeneca vaccines received, and the 800,000 one-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccines expected, would bring the total vaccinated population to 1.2 million. Sonolala, TTD News.
And as government continues the rollout of its vaccination plan, the COVID-19 figures continue to rise. The latest report from the Ministry of Health says there are 327 new positive cases and 9 more people have died. This brings the COVID-19 death toll to 686. The number of active cases now stands at 8,965.
Public health officials in St. Lucia are reporting a reduction in COVID-19 cases and admissions to the respiratory hospital. However, authorities are concerned about an increase in social activities and poor compliance, which they warn could jeopardize the gains made in curbing the infection rate.
The Ministry of Health continues to have all hands on deck for the management of the deadly coronavirus. According to Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, there has been a decline in overall cases and admission to the respiratory hospital. But the challenges are far from over. In fact, the CMO points out that some constituencies have had difficulty in managing COVID-19 cases.
The daily infection rate for the past week was 3.2 per 100,000 per day and an average of 6 cases per day. The majority of the cases continue to be seen in the southern region of the island and Babonneau and Gros-Islet in the north.
The health officials cited an increase in social activities and poor compliance to established measures as the reason behind the continued spread of the virus. Recently, 19 nationals tested positive for the Alpha variant of the virus from the UK, which now brings the total number in country to 41.
We note the increase in social activities across the island, especially on weekends, and the general relaxation of the public health measures. We continue to advise the public to remain vigilant, adhere to the protocols that are put in place to keep us safe. These include regular hand washing, the use of a face mask in public places, avoiding crowds and persons with respiratory symptoms, and keeping frequently touched surfaces clean.
The Ministry of Health advises that vaccination remains the most effective public health measure to manage the infectious disease. Health officials continue to encourage members of the general public to get immunized.
The AstraZeneca vaccine has been proven to be safe and effective in protecting persons from developing COVID-19, its severe forms, complications, hospitalizations, and death. We continue to urge the public to access the various sites to get immunized at the soonest.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness continues to caution the general public against letting their guard down. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
And in sports, we kick off with football. The Heart Institute of the Caribbean, HIC, is now on board as sponsors of the Jamaica Premier League. The partnership with the HIC will provide cardiovascular screening to some 407 footballers, coaches and managers from all 12 teams in the Jamaica Premier League for the 2021 season at an estimated value of $14 million. Screening will be done on an ongoing basis throughout the season under the ambit of the HIC Foundation Play Smart program that is designed to screen and detect underlying cardiovascular diseases that could be potentially catastrophic for players if undetected. Institute Chairman Professor Ernest Madu said cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death and disability across the world, including Jamaica.
Most human beings alive will ultimately die from cardiovascular disease. It is also one of those diseases that could have catastrophic outcomes if undetected. Now, the best starting point is for individuals to understand what their risks are and what they can do to mitigate those risks. So we're not just going to be screening the athletes and treating the conditions. We're also going to be engaged in preventive cardiovascular work to help the athletes live better, healthier lives that keep them safe from cardiovascular disease and keep their families safe from cardiovascular disease. To do this, we plan to be hosting a series of seminars and training sessions for the athletes, their families, the coaches, and the administrators through the year. I think once we do this, it becomes a habit in terms of living healthier lives.
Professional Football Jamaica's board member Donovan White believes this is a timely sponsorship for the 2021 season. He said, quote, "We believe it is the responsible thing to do to determine with a reasonable degree of reliability whether our footballers are free from cardiovascular abnormalities that could increase the risk of death during training or competition," end quote. Since 2000, FIFA has recorded over 50 deaths related to heart failure, heart attack, or cardiac arrest during play. Recently, Danish and Inter Milan midfielder Christian Eriksen suffered a cardiac arrest last Saturday during a match against Finland in the Euro 2021 competition. And in other sporting news, on Wednesday, a cabinet minister in Japan said that the host nation is planning to set a cap of 10,000 fans at sport events ahead of the Olympics. The move comes as organizers weigh how many domestic spectators can attend the games. The proposed measure would come into force after a COVID-19 state of emergency in Tokyo and other parts of the country ends on June 20 and would last until the end of August, so said Yasushoto Nishimura, the minister in charge of virus measures. It would limit spectators to 50% of a venue's capacity, or 10,000 people, whichever is smaller, he said. The plan is expected to become official later this week. The move could set the boundaries for a decision by Olympic organizers on how many domestic fans, if any, can attend Games events when Tokyo 2020 kicks off on July 23. Overseas spectators have already been banned. And with that, we call full time to today's news. On behalf of our entire production crew, we say thanks as always for making it PBCJ, the People's Station.